Welcome to the podcast. It's the magical holidays. Time for Joe watching 60 Christmas movies in 60 days. Why, you might ask? Because it sounds like a crazy task to be watching 60 Christmas movies in 60 days. It'll be struggle, no I won't lie. By the halfway point I will lose my mind, but with your support I'm gonna be fine. So let's have a blast on this Christmas time. Join me now and let's find out about today's Christmas movie. Was it good or bad? Happy or sad? Is there another dead mom and dad? Let's get to it with no delay. It's your old pal Joe and he's happy to say welcome to Joe watches 60 Christmas movies in 60 days.
Hello everybody, it's me, your old pal Joe. And today is another episode of Joe watches 60 Christmas movies in 60 days. Can you believe it? I can't. I can't believe it. I'm not feeling great today. It is rainy outside. It is cold outside. And if you don't know, if I haven't mentioned it enough this season, I record outside on the podcast patio of my apartment. It's a great place to record with the dulcet tones of the outdoors. Except today is garbage because it's so cold and rainy out. The air doesn't feel good. The air feels bad. And also, I'm just kind of down today because of non-podcast things. And I'm down also because of podcast things, because I'm tired. I watched a movie today. What a waste of time. But before we talk about that waste of time, let me tell you about something that's not a waste of time. That's right. It's my good friends over at Third Eye Comics. As I have for 25 episodes, and now today, the 26th, I will tell you that they are a great solution if your problem includes wanting to buy comics, wanting to buy graphic novels, wanting to buy anything related to the gaming world, whether it be card games or tabletop games, role-playing games, board games, or if your problem somehow features the lack of music on vinyl or movies on DVD, Blu-ray, or 4K discs. Buddy, if any of your problems are associated with the things I've just mentioned, ThirdEyeComics.com has a solution for you. And if you're not in the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, so you can visit one of their wonderful stores, one of their wonderful and sometimes humongous stores, well, friend, do I have a solution for you for that? And that's shop.thirdeyecomics.com. So head on over there and buy something. Tell them Joe said hi. And we'll get back to talking about today's movie. It's a Christmas thing. I have no idea why it's called It's a Christmas Thing. It doesn't make any sense to me. In fact, I think, hold on, let me check something. That's right. It's not only called It's a Christmas Thing, which is its original title. It's also called Peppermint and Postcards. And I have to say, that title makes more sense, but neither of them make a great deal of sense. This movie barely has anything to do with Peppermint. Barely has anything to do with Postcards, although a little bit more than the others. And It's a Christmas Thing does not make any sense. All right, what's this movie about? This movie is about a single mother, named Cara, who is raising her daughter Megan. She's separated from her husband, whose name does not matter to me. He is simply called Dad throughout my notes. And for the Christmas season, she's invited Dad and his new girlfriend and fiance, Susie, to come stay with them. It's a bit awkward for Cara to have her ex and her ex's new partner over for the holidays, but it's important to her to kind of include this new woman to the family, and also her daughter Megan is very excited about meeting her dad's new girlfriend and getting to spend time with them. So the beginning of this movie focuses a lot on Cara bringing in this new person into the family, making sure they feel comfortable, making sure that they feel welcome. And after that, we get to the meat of this plot. People keep asking Cara, like, when are you going to start dating? When are you going to start dating? And Cara's like, well, I'm not interested in dating. I'm not ready to start dating. And that's a big focus on everybody in this movie, including her daughter, Megan. Well, eventually, guys, I'm so cold, I'm not even going to read my notes. I remember everything that happens in this movie. So eventually, Susie, the new member of this family, the dad's girlfriend, is talking to Cara one night and says, don't you want to date someone? And she goes, no, I don't think I'm ready for it, but I mean, maybe someday. And her daughter sees this because she's being sneaky. She's sitting on the steps listening from behind the two. and she decides she's going to make it her duty to get her mom a boyfriend. So she goes upstairs and she writes a letter to Santa Claus. And the letter simply says, "Find my mom a Christmas love." And then, inexplicably, she sets that letter on her open windowsill. And wouldn't you know it, throughout the night, a wind gust comes in, blows the letter off of the windowsill and into the open night air. We watch it float through the sky, float through the air. All of a sudden, it lands at the foot of a statue of a Santa Claus standing on a corner, where it is found the next morning by... who finds it? Oh, the owner of a bakery whose name is Max. So Max sees the note and he takes it into his bakery and then posts it on his countertop. Why? I don't know. But then who should come in the next day but Susie, the new girlfriend. Susie sees the note and she goes, "Wait a second. My boyfriend's daughter is named Megan." And he goes, "Oh, do you know Cara?" She goes, "Yeah, that's her." He says, "Well, I wasn't sure which Megan this might be. There's only a few Megans in town." And she goes, "Well, this might be her." So she takes a photo of the letter. But instead of taking it back home and saying, "Hey, Megan, did you write this letter?" she just posts it to social media. Why? So she posts it to social media, and wouldn't you know it, it goes viral as hell. It goes viral. It has 500, I think it was 300,000 likes, 150 likes, not 150 likes, but 150,000, whatever it is. It has a ton of likes and it goes viral. At the same time, while all this is happening, we check in with a newscaster named Chet. He is one of those guys that'll be on site for a news report for your local TV station. "Hi, this is Chet, and I'm here down here where there was a bank robbery," one of those guys. So Chet and his cameraman, who are buddy-buddy, they notice this social media post, and they're like, "Man, that would be a good story to cover," especially since Chet is trying to get a promotion. But the only way he's going to get a promotion, it seems like, is if he gets some big story and helps break it wide. So they see this and go, "This has potential." And then Chet goes, "Wait, I recognize that counter. That's at Maxwell's Bakery." So then he goes over to the bakery and he finds the letter. And then I guess Maxwell tells him, "I think it belongs to this little girl. Here's her address." So then Chet shows up at the house and he's like, "I'd like to talk to the woman that wrote this." And one of the hashtags on the social media post is hashtag Santa Mom. So then he says, "I'd like to talk to Santa Mom." Cara answers the door and she's like, "What's going on here? I don't want to talk to you." So she pretends, she doesn't pretend, she doesn't talk to them. She closes the door in their face. And then she turns to her family and goes, "What's going on here?" And suddenly everybody understands what's happening, even though it's come upon them very quickly. The daughter, Megan, is like, and she's like 11 or so, whatever. So she says, like, "I wrote the letter." And then Susie's like, "I took a photo of it and posted it to social media, despite the fact that I thought your daughter might have been the one to write it." And then the dad's like, "Well, I let them in to the front yard, the newsman. I thought he wanted something else. I don't know." He doesn't really have a part to play in the story, but he keeps showing up. So then Cara doesn't know what to do with all of this, so she goes back to the door where the newsman is still waiting, and she apologizes for closing the door in his face, but basically says, "I don't want anything to do with this." And he goes, "But I would really like to interview you because, it would be good story, and people are really curious as to who the person is behind this Christmas letter." Cara puts up a fight against this, but eventually the guy tries again when she's at Maxwell's Bakery. He's apparently staking out there waiting to run into her. He does. And his cameraman, who's, again, his buddy, and his kind of like, his, not spiritual leader, but he gives him advice. He said, "You should go over there and don't just tell her that you want to interview her. Tell her why you want to interview her. Give her a reason beyond simply it would be a good story, because she doesn't care about that." So he goes over to her and he says something along the lines of, "I want to interview you because a lot of people were affected by the letter and they want to know that, love is still out there, that love is possible. And they want to know more about the person behind the daughter who wrote this letter. And all of this is enough to soften her." And she kind of gives in and she'll get interviewed. So we see her setting up the home for the interview, making it all pretty. And the two of them are bickering about the best shot and where to set the camera up. And you could tell sparks are flying already, folks. Chet and Cara, it's our day ones, man. They're going to be together before you know it. Unless you know it before the end of the movie, because they're not going to be together before the end of the movie. So they talk a little bit. They have a proper interview about what's going on. And then Chet gets an idea, and he goes, what if we set you up on a date? And there's a big dance, Christmas Eve dance in town. And like we could have that as a big culmination. Like we'll set you up on some dates. If any of them go well, we can go there and we can show that, like love still exists and stuff. And for whatever reason, even though she was totally against this earlier on, Cara's like, yeah, sure, no problem. I will do this. I will agree to go on a series of dates until I find Mr. Right. First up, and so also the other thing that's happening is she's getting tons and tons and tons of letters by the sackful. The mailman, they're all addressed to Santa Mom, but he recognized her from the general town gossip, and he knew that it belonged to Cara. So he's bringing her sacks and sacks of letters, thousands, he says. And so they're going to go through those letters, and they're going to pick out people that sound promising. So first up, we get a guy named Adam. And they set it up so that Adam and Cara are going to go to a Christmas tree lot and pick out a Christmas tree and basically have a nice time out, go for a walk, things like that. So they do all of this. She meets Adam. She's very nervous. She's very talkative, and there's a running joke about how she talks too much. And they go on their date, and the date seems fine. But then Chet asks Adam, what is your hobbies? What do you like to do? And he says LARPing. And then his cameraman explains that means live action role playing. And Chet's like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. He doesn't say it, but you can tell by his face. And then at the end of the date, Adam, and she thinks that this date went fine. She's had a fine time with Adam. And Adam says, Cara, I have an important question for you. And the thinking is that he's going to ask if they can go on a date to the big dance, since that's sort of the culmination of this whole adventure. But no, that's not what he wants. He wants to know if the tree that they picked out for Christmas, if he can actually keep that tree, because it would look great to decorate his next LARPing adventure. And you're supposed to go, what a fucking loser. And instead I just went, oh, okay, I see. And so that was his big question. Thus ends date one. Since date one didn't go well, and it was based upon, the loud cars here. Oh, loud car, I hate you so much. I'm just going to talk through it because I just want to get this over with. But anyway, so, the movie's like, oh, this guy didn't work out. And they picked him out from the mail sacks. They picked out his letter. So they said, well, you know what we need to do? Instead of picking out somebody she thinks sounds good, we'll go the opposite route. We'll pick out somebody who doesn't seem like a good fit in hopes that opposites will attract. So then we cut to the next date. The next date's going to be ice skating. And they've picked out a guy named Nigel. And Nigel seems like he might be in it more for the adulation or the attention, because when Cara gets to the date, there's the camera crew, the cameraman set up, Chet's there, and they're going to record the date like normal. But when they get there, they see that Nigel is actually signing autographs off to the side. The people are excited to see Nigel. They know he's the next date on the horizon. Everybody's been watching the news to see what the next story is going to be about this. And so everybody's excited to see her next date. It's this guy named Nigel. And then he goes over and he starts on the other thing you got to understand throughout this whole movie is that each time something doesn't go right, like the first date with Adam, Chet and Cara spend more and more time together. And that's important here because when Nigel goes up to Cara, he's like, hey, maybe we should just go ahead and skip ice skating. We can go hang out somewhere and get to really know each other. Very romantic sounding type of, pushing forward, like what he's interested in, just getting to know her. Now, does he mean more than getting to know her? We'll never know, because Chet puts his foot down and he's like, no, we agreed to have this be an ice skating date, so why don't we just go ahead and have it be ice skating? Nigel, why don't you go put on your ice skates? And this is when I first sensed like Chet's being a bit protective of Cara. So Nigel puts on his ice skates. He ties them up real nice and tight. He stands up. The crowd's cheering for him. He walks out to the edge of the ice. He raises his hands in victory. He steps onto the ice and he immediately falls. And I did not laugh, because what I thought was, oh my God, he might be really hurt. And we never see Nigel again. Because after that we cut. And as I said, every time a date doesn't go right, Chet and Cara spend more time together. So we cut to Chet and Cara sitting on the edge of the ice rink having coffee and talking to one another. And they talk and talk and talk about their lives, their dating histories. You know, like, why isn't Chet dating someone? We kind of understand why Cara's not dating someone, but why isn't Chet dating someone? Turns out it's because he got his heart broken by his girlfriend at the time. I forget her name. Bobby, maybe. And so she left him for his boss at the time, which is a rough go. And once this happened, once he got his heart broken like this, he decided to focus on himself, and he made a list of all these things that he wanted to do by himself. And one of them was, I guess, sell the condo that he was sharing with his ex-girlfriend and go on a trip to Italy by himself and run a marathon by himself, things like that. And he's done so much of these. So this is what he's telling her. And then the cameraman interrupts him, comes up, and he goes, "Oh, quick update on Nigel. I'll just let you know they took him to a hospital. He's going to get x-rays. Maybe we could just redo this date tomorrow morning." And that's the full extent that we get on date 2. That's the whole of date 2. We see the guy. He seems to be interested in the attention. He likes the attention. He tries to go ice skating. He breaks a bone, maybe. That's it. That's all for Nigel. So when the cameraman suggested they reschedule, the date for the next day, Cara said, he lied about being able to ice skate, and I don't really want to date a liar, so I don't think I want to go out with him. And Chet's like, totally understandable. I get you. I understand what you're saying. So then they said about finding a third date. And they go back to the letters. This time they're going to pick somebody else out that seems like a good match. But then Maxwell, the guy who runs the bakery, every time he appears, he seems to be more and more into Cara. Like, he's being very attentive. He's talking to her a lot. At one point, he delivered some baked good to her house. And then you see that there's a knock on the door. They open the door, and there's a box waiting for them, but nobody there. They open it, and they see these 2 cookies that are baked and iced to look like people. And a note says, "I would really like to go on a date with you." And then it's just a -M, which is risky because she has been getting tons of mail. She may not know this means Maxwell. Thankfully, she does. But before we move on, you have to understand that these cookies have way too much icing on them. They look like they are made out of inflatable icing. Like, the icing is approximately 2/3 of the cookie at this point. The cookie's just in there somewhere. The only thing you can see of the cookie is the head, and everything else is puffy like marshmallows. It's way too much icing on these cookies, and he's a baker. He is a baker. What is he doing making this icing be that prevalent on the cookie? So, anyway, the next day, apparently she did figure it out, so she goes to the bakery, and she goes up to Maxwell, and I thought maybe there would be some "if it's really him" kind of moment, because he walks up and he goes, "Oh, hey, Cara," acting like, he didn't just leave 2 disgusting-looking cookies on her doorstep. And she goes, "Max, I would like to go on a date with you. Let's do it." And he goes, "Oh, okay, sounds good." And then cut to her talking to Chet about the next date, and she basically says, "I want the next date to be nice and romantic. I don't want it to be like the other dates. Let's make this a nice and romantic one." So we then join everybody in a fancy restaurant. It's one, apparently, that Cara has gone to before and she really likes. To start us off, Max is running a little late, which is never a good sign. You don't want to run late for a date if you can avoid it. But maybe he couldn't avoid it. Maybe he was busy over-icing some fucking cookies. So the cameraman says, "Hey, while we're waiting for Max, do you, Chet, and you, Cara, mind standing in for Cara and Max in the date? Sit at the table so I can get my camera set up. We can get the angles right. We can get the lighting right, all that shit." Sure enough. And what this means is that they get more time to talk. So I don't remember what they're talking about at this point, but it's just more getting to know each other shit. Oh, man. And then there's tons of moments in this conversation where one of them will, make that face like, wow, maybe I'm talking to the love of my life, but then just move on to the next thing. And they just go on. Eventually Max does show up, so it's his date, but he's very nervous. He's very clumsy. He's bumping into plants that are, standing next to the table, these little tree-like plants. He's a mess. So Chet pulls him aside and says, "Look, man, just calm down. It's going to be fine. And also here, I got you 2 tickets to that Christmas Eve dance. Why don't you ask her after the date to go to the dance?" And Max said, "That sounds great. I'll do that." So the date goes fine. We cut, we have a little dating montage. They're having a good time. They're laughing. They're having a nice time. And then it's over. And then we see Chet talking to Cara again. Now, where the fuck is Max? I don't know. Max is talking to the cameraman for some reason. So they're talking. They're chatting. which leaves, yes, Cara and Chet more time to get to know each other. No, it doesn't. Yes, this movie has sort of lost its plot where it's just now about these two people, and you're supposed to think like, will they, won't they? And this movie's just like, nah, wait a second, they're gonna. So they're talking more, and then eventually it's time for Max to surprise Cara with tickets to the thing. And he goes like, hey, Cara, would you like to go out with me again to the dance? And Cara's caught a bit off guard. And at this point, she's starting to seriously think about Chet as a romantic partner. Now, she hasn't vocalized this, but you can tell she's thinking it. And so now that this guy's asked her out again, she wants to say no, but she doesn't want to, A, hurt this guy's feelings, and B, there's a camera crew, recording all of this based upon the idea that she's going to go to this dance with somebody. So she says yes, she'll go with him. And that's it. That's the end of the date. But then something goes awry with her feelings. I don't remember what. I'm not going to look in my notes. I'm sorry. I'm very cold. My hands hurt. But she runs into Chet. She goes to his office. That's right. She goes, Chet, look, I've been thinking about this. And I think what it is that she's determined that she doesn't have feelings for Max, but she does have feelings for Chet. So she goes to the office and she goes, Chet, I don't want to go on this next date with Max, and I don't really want to be filmed anymore for any of this. And things have been going great with these with the video packages, the news stories. Everybody loves them. Everybody's watching them. As we saw earlier with Nigel, people are treating the participants as if they are big celebrities. And so he's using this story as a basis to get the promotion that he wants in the big city instead of the small town where he's at. And he doesn't want to hear this because he's torn in two ones. One, there's a project that he's working on, and this woman's starting to pull the plug. Two, he knows that if he doesn't finish this story, he's probably not going to get this promotion. So he's trying to tell her, look, no, I think that I can't really go along with this because I need this to happen. But before they can fully talk it out, she has to leave because she's taking her kid to go to sled down a hill for snow, snowing and sledding down a hill in snow. You get it. So he's like, dang, I didn't get to talk to her. So he tells his cameraman, and the cameraman's like, dude, you need to lock that down because if you don't get that story done, if there isn't a happy ending where she like the Santa mom, where she doesn't find love by Christmas time, you're not going to get the promotion. He's like, oh shit. So he goes and he joins them sledding, and he wants to talk to her about this, but they end up just sledding and having a good time with her and her daughter. And eventually, it's like, I don't know what to do. So they get back to her house. He's dropping her off. And they're both having a really good time. And she says to him, matter-of-factly, I really hope that we can do this again sometime. And he says to her back, matter-of-factly, how about we do something later today? I can pick you up here tonight. And she says, that sounds great. So now they're on an official date. One of the people that Cara's been talking to throughout this whole thing is Susie, her ex-husband's new girlfriend. And so she tells her about this, like, hey, I think I'm full in on the Chet train now. And Susie's like, I knew it. I knew you would be full in on the Chet train because I could tell that was your connection all along, you and Chet. That's the one true pair. And but you really need to tell that guy Maxwell that you're not going to be going with him. She says, no problem. I got you. So then she goes and she finds Maxwell, and she tells him very basically, hey, guess what, Max? I'm sorry. I'm just not that into you. And he goes, you know what? I get it. I get why you're saying that. When we went on a date, I enjoy you so much as a person, but I didn't really feel that spark either. I didn't really feel it. So I get it. Like, we're just not meant to be. And she goes, yeah, that's true. I agree with you. Thank you. Thank you for taking this so well. I think there might be somebody else out there I like. And he says, oh, you think? Like, even he can tell that she's supposed to be with Chet. So now that she's done the responsible thing, she goes home and she gets ready. She's all prettied up for her big date with Chet. Chet shows up. He knocks on the door, but he's still wearing like work clothes. And we find out that he went and talked to his boss, and his boss made it clear in no uncertain terms, if this story doesn't follow through, he's not getting the promotion. So he tells her, finally, after trying for 2 or 3 times, look, I can't have this segment end without an ending. I need you to go on this last date with Max. And she says, no, I've already talked to Max. We're not going to go on a date again. And he says, but if you don't, I'm not going to get this promotion. And then she's like, oh, you were just in this for the promotion? Fine, you know what? I will go out with him, and I'll go out with him on a date, and I'll go with him to the dance, and that way we'll be done, and I never have to see your ugly ass again. And she might not have worded it that way. Now, old Chet's caught off guard here, but he's also getting what he wants, so he just kind of shuts up and says, okay, like he feels bad, because she's obviously angry and hurt, but she's going to go along with it. Well, now I'm trying to think of what happens next. Basically, her family gets involved because the little girl sees what's going on, and she knows this is not what's supposed to be happening. She should be with Chet after all. Like, Max is a great guy. I mean, she's 11. I don't know how she, explains it in her head. But basically, Max is a great guy, but that's not what's supposed to happen. She's supposed to be with Chet. So then she goes with Max, goes to Max's place and says, hey, I have a plan. The 11-year-old makes her way to the bakery and tells the grown-up, I have a plan. Then we cut to the night of the dance, and everybody's going to go to the dance. We got the daughter, Megan, 11 years oldish, Cara's ex-husband, his new girlfriend, Susie. They're all going to the dance. They get there, and of course, Chet's there with the cameraman. They're ready to shoot. But she's very standoffish with him. She doesn't want to, she's not going to chit-chat with him because she's done with him after this. They go on the date, and she meets up with Max, and Max is like, that's cool. Thanks. But, and also, Chet starts his live broadcast of this whole event. And he's like, we're here with Max and we're here with Cara. What do you say going on the big date at the big dance? And Max says, actually, before we get to the dance, I have to say something. I actually gave my ticket to the dance away to someone who wanted it more. Or someone who loved Cara. And everybody's confused. Like, who is this that he gave the dance ticket to? And then he says, I gave it to Megan. Which is, obviously her daughter. And that makes sense because she does love her mom. And Megan walks up, and Chet's like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't think that's not really what the letter that was sent to Santa Claus. Yes, a Christmas love, but I don't think they meant her daughter. And the little girl, Megan's like, no. And I'm going to give my ticket to someone who should go to the dance with my mom. And she hands it to Chet. And Chet is immediately taken aback and very embarrassed. Also embarrassed, her mom, Cara, who covers her face and is like, oh my God. And she immediately walks away. And then Chet kind of gets his shit together, and he's still broadcasting the whole time. And then he gives this impassioned speech. He goes, you know what? I haven't always made the right decision. I thought that I needed to get out of this town, but really I was just trying to get away from my history here, the problems I've had, I don't know if he mentions her specifically, but basically his ex breaking his heart. And I learned I don't have to leave town to help make those things better. And also leaving town would take me away from somebody that I really want to be with, blah, blah, blah. Cara, I'd like to be with you. Will you be with me? I've fallen in love with you. And she turns around and she goes, oh my gosh, yes, of course. And then they smooch and everyone claps. And that's the end of the movie. That's it. I don't know. You'll have to let me know. Was this episode okay enough? I hope it was okay enough. You can let me know on social media at JOEMOC on Twitter and Instagram and Blue Sky and all those things. That's where I'm at. You can just let me know, JOEMOC, if you thought this episode was good enough. Because I did not do it the normal way. But I am very cold. My hands are very cold. MVP of this movie? I don't know. The guy Chet did a pretty good job. You know what? I like the cameraman. The cameraman was a fun character. Not a fun character, but a fun performance. He did a good job. I liked him in this movie. So I'm going to go with him for the MVP. Overall, this movie was fine. It's inoffensive. There's some, performances are pretty good in it. It's a pretty simple plot, although I think it gets both overly complicated and overly simplified at different points. We get this idea for her to go on dates to find the right one, and she only really goes on 3 dates. And of those, only 2 are random dates. You thought we'd have more random dates that build up the, no one is good enough or no, we can't find anybody before she goes to somebody that's already within her world, being Max. You think maybe 5 dates, 4 dates, and then comes Max, somebody that's already inside of her world. And then, of course, Chet's the next guy. So that just seemed like something I would have done. Instead, it was just, we spent a lot of time on cutting back and forth between Chet worried about his promotion and Cara worried about dealing with the inclusion of this, her ex's new girlfriend. Neither of which really plays hard into the. Well, I guess the promotion does, but the whole thing with Susie, the new girlfriend, that doesn't really play into the story. She's fine with her the whole time. She's pleasant. She's fine. Everybody gets along the entire time. So for that to take up as much time as it didn't really fit in. You could have easily replaced her with a best friend character, or make it so that it wasn't the first time she met her and they were already friends. Like her best friend or one of her closest friends just happens to be her ex-husband's girlfriend. Whatever. The movie's done. I'm done talking about it. Thank you for listening to episode 26 of Joe Watches 60 Christmas Movies in 60 Days. I hope you have a good day, and I hope you're not as cold as I am right now, because I am very cold and I'm going inside.